how to use the MySQL Cluster AutoInstaller in setting up a cluster against in the Oracle Cloud. So what we have done, we have created 3 cloud instances, virtual machines, each with 2 CPUs. We have logged into those here, as you can see, just to see how the activity that we're doing is activated. And so we're going to use the MySQL Cluster AutoInstaller. We got the IP addresses we got from the instance. We found the IP addresses here. So now we want to start the AutoInstaller, NDB setup Python script. Here we go. So it's a new configuration. We call it the cloud. Now we need to put in the IP addresses, a list of the IP addresses. And it's important to make sure that the dots are in the right place and the commas in the right places. But I think they are. We want to use key-based SSH for Oracle Cloud Access. The user is OPC, Oracle Public Cloud. We're going to install the cluster from the repo. We're going to open ports in the firewall. And we're going to use internal IP addresses, the 10.00 and so forth, for actually setting up the cluster inside the cloud. We use the internal IP addresses. So the external IP address is used to discover the local address and to connect through SSH. So now we see how it fetches the information about those 3 virtual machines. And there we go. We find that they're all equals. And if we want to show extended info, we can see that they also picked up the internal IP address. And we can see that we're running Oracle Linux version 7.7 as expected. And we're going to use the repo, the MySQL 8.0 repo for Enterprise Linux 7. Okay, let's move on to the next step. So here we get a proposal of having 3 nodes, where 2 of the nodes have a MySQL server and a data node. One of the nodes have actually all 3 types, and then there is one node that only has a management server. The idea with this is that this management server, management node number 1, is the node that acts as an arbitrator when any node fails of the data nodes. It has to sort of ask this arbitrator who is allowed to continue. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. We don't have any particular configuration settings we want to play around with here, so we'll just move to the next step. Now the fun starts. We're going to start installing the cluster on the host. And there are 3 hosts. They don't have anything. They're newly created, so you have to basically install everything required. So we click here and we immediately get the proposal of what we need to do. And we go with that. This command is going to take a few minutes. So installing software, even if it's automated, takes a little bit of time. During this process, we can see here in the top that things are going on here in the machines. They're using RPM, they're using JUM and SSH into the machine. So we can see that things are actually moving forward. Okay, the cluster is installed and everything is working. Now it's time to deploy the cluster. Deploying the cluster means installing the files, but it also means that we set up the firewalls and a few other things. So even this will take a little bit of time, but so let's start it up. And the cluster deployment is finished as well. So remember one thing, if something hangs in the middle of the process, I mean the MySQL Cluster AutoInstaller is not foolproof, and connections to the cloud can go down. I mean it's a error-prone process, so if it hangs, just try again and it should work fine. Or start up a new process, try it again, and start from scratch again. That always usually works. So now we want to start the cluster. So it starts by checking, start the first management server. It starts the second management server. Next it starts the data nodes. You can see those turning into yellow. It takes a bit of time to start the data nodes, around 20 to 30 seconds. And as soon as that's done, we can start the MySQL servers. That's a quicker thing. And voila, we're done. So now we can view all the commands that were done. So you can see here all the commands that we executed in order to accomplish the whole thing. And we can even get the log files from these machines. So see what the error logs of the MySQL server, the cluster log of the data node logs. And you can see the file names that are where they are residing. So should be easy to find. And we're done. The cluster is up and running. You can play around with it as much as you like. Have fun.